Hey everybody, Cody Barnett, Bodyworks Physical Therapy and Concussion Center, and this is part two of three of conversations that we're having with my good friend Ken Calwell. And in case you missed part one, here's what we talked about part one. Ken, 27 years ago, was involved in an accident and was riding his bike as he's training for triathlons and was hit by a car head on and suffered 11 fractures. Fractured his right arm, his right thigh, and his left shin in multiple places. And it really came out of it, almost lost his life, almost lost his leg, almost lost his life. So pretty traumatic accident, as you can imagine. And so that's what we talked about in part one. So if you haven't seen that, please feel free to watch that. It kind of gives you a lot of the background of this. And then so what we'd like to talk about now is basically, you know, our purpose of doing this video is just the fact of overcoming adversity. And so I know there's a lot of people out there that have injuries and bad things that happen, and just to give a perspective of overcoming adversity. I mean, there's some things that we all go through that can be pretty rough in terms of physical injuries and things that we go through in life. And Ken, one of the things that I always appreciated about you, so 27 years ago, I'm a newbie. I'm a new therapist and just kind of getting my feet wet, and I'm stuck with a guy that's got 11 fractures and different pieces of metal sticking out of his body, and okay, how do I rehab this guy? One of the things that I can tell you about Ken that I've appreciated, and I appreciate even more today than I did back then, is that you just, quite frankly, you worked really, really, really hard. Ken would come in for therapy, we'd do therapy, and then he'd go on his own and work out. And then, you know, sometime around noon, there'd be a Post-it note on my desk telling me what he did on his workouts after he did therapy. So anyway, that's been one thing that's always impressed me. But because of the nature of your injuries, we did have to get a little bit creative from a therapy standpoint, right?
Absolutely, very creative. In fact, I think, you know, because my left leg was shattered in multiple places, and for a while we didn't know for sure if I'd be able to keep it, if it would heal enough to where I'd be able to keep it. And my right arm was not only shattered, broken in 4 different places, but it also had a bad nerve damage. And so I didn't have really much use of the right arm from the shoulder down with the nerve injury in the shoulder, brachial plexus nerve, I think. And with those injuries, like you said, Cody, it's like it required a lot of creative ways of trying to do therapy, because, you know, you got only one arm worked, and really both legs were broken. And so Cody came up. What I really appreciate about Cody was he just, you know, really, you could tell he really put his heart and soul into me and into my recovery. And even when there wasn't, you know, typical therapies probably to do, he came up with creative ones. And a couple that I remember, one was that we discovered that, you know, if you think about it, if both legs are broken badly and you don't have the use of your right arm and you're right-handed, the whole idea of, like, how do you support your weight? Crutches, or, you know, you didn't want to be in a wheelchair. We needed to get weight on my legs to help them to heal. And so Cody came up with an idea, because a walker didn't really work and a canes didn't work. And so Cody came up with this idea of a shopping cart. And so the idea was... Very
high level, very high level therapy here.
Yeah. So I don't know what medical supply company you go to get a shopping cart, but it's that Acme Medical Supply. But we found that the local grocery store actually carries these shopping carts, and we borrowed a shopping cart. And that shopping cart, if you think about it, it's, you know, 4 wheels and got a lot of support on it, so you could put your weight on the handlebar with my one hand that I could hold on to with, and the other hand would strap it to it. And then it allowed me to, it's like you're kind of falling forward, but it was kind of supporting your weight. And so it allowed me, because I really wanted, my goal was I wanted to run. I'd been a triathlete before, and I wanted to get back to triathlons. That was my dream or goal. And Cody really appreciated that goal. Some people I said that goal to that just, would try to nicely kind of talk you out of it. They didn't believe with all my injuries that maybe I'd be able to do triathlons again. But Cody always believed in me, and that always meant so much to me. And so he, when I said I wanted to run again, he said, well, let's figure out a way to do that. And so we got the shopping cart, and I had this contraption on my leg, the exterior fixation device that Cody talked about before. And their legs were both pretty weak at this time. And I got behind the shopping cart, and all of a sudden, I couldn't just walk, but I could walk pretty fast behind it, which was the first time I was able to do that after the accident. And then, sure enough, as I got stronger, and as Cody said, I'd come in, and they had a little interior track inside the rehab facility, and I would go and do laps around that to start with. And then, goal of 1 or 2 laps, and then you'd want to double that goal to 4 laps, and you just kept increasing the goal. And like Cody said, I'd finish with physical therapy with him, and then I would go on my own, and I'd try to challenge myself to every day do more laps than I did the day before. And then when I was totally wiped out, tired, I'd come back and put a note on Cody's desk and tell him how many laps I'd done.
And I remember the time, I wish I would have saved it, but I remember the first time that you came in and you told me you did a 5K.
5K, yeah, 3.1, yeah, that's
and
right.
So,
Awesome.
and I know that was slow. It was a very slow 5K, but I remember the time, and I wish in hindsight that I would have saved that for posterity.
But it was a great way to build my strength, and it was smart by Cody because it not only supported my weight and allowed me to walk almost sort of shuffle run again faster than I think we ever would have done it otherwise, but it just really appealed to my goal setting and being able to set a goal and every day do more laps than the day before. And then eventually it got ridiculous doing it inside, and so we took it outside. And so we got to the hospital parking lot, and I would run circles with this shopping cart in a circle. So you got this guy who's limping and walking / running behind this shopping cart in circles, and just I wanted to get better and better, so just do more and more and more of them. And I think we wore the wheels off that shopping cart eventually. And actually, a crazy story, but like years later, somebody was talking, and they were telling some story to a friend, and they were talking about this time they saw this guy running laps with a shopping cart around in the St. Joseph Hospital, and they didn't know it was me, and so that created kind of a funny story. But so that was one thing that Cody did that was very creative and really helped me to learn to run again. And eventually I was able to learn to run again and compete in 5Ks and 10Ks. And I did a half marathon. I did a 20-mile run. It's the longest I've done since the accident, and then started doing triathlons again. So I'm very thankful for Cody and for that creative way of getting me to learn to run again. I also think that putting that much weight on my leg over and over and over again stimulated the bone growth. And so I also really credit Cody for helping me to heal and save my leg and heal my leg. So that was awesome. And another one was I also, as part of triathlon, swam. And so for a long time, for months after my accident, I didn't have any use of my right shoulder, my right arm to lift it. I could use my hand, but I couldn't use my shoulder and anything really above my elbow.
Well, and Ken had what's called a non-union, which means the bone right here in his arm was non-union, meaning the fracture wasn't healing, so it was still loose.
That's right.
So you had plastic. We had a plastic brace over that would help hold it, at least keep it stable. But it was loose, like the bone was loose.
Yeah, of all my fractures, I was very blessed and fortunate that like 10 of them healed, 10 of the 11. But this one we couldn't get healed in my as Cody said, in my right upper arm, and so that was a non-union. So that it was like having an extra joint. It just bent right there, and so we had a brace on it to protect it. But also the nerve didn't work, so I didn't have use of that arm. And for months and months after the accident, and there was some real concerns by the doctors that perhaps those nerves might never come back or never come back well enough to really use the arm. And so for swimming, it's really critical, obviously, you have both arms. And so Cody got the idea that if I swam, and if I could swim with just even my one arm, that because my body, the muscle memory of my body was used to, when you put your left arm over, then just naturally a swimmer wants to bring his right arm over. And Cody's idea was if I swam, even with one arm, eventually that right arm that muscle memory would come back, and it would just stimulate perhaps growth and stimulate that arm to start to work again. And so even as of June, so I started swimming a lot starting in the spring of 1992, about 6 months after the accident, 5 months after the accident. I started swimming very regularly with a brace on my arm, and I would just swim with one arm, and this arm would just drag behind it. And there were even doctors that, when I would tell them about that, they were kind of really weren't sure it was going to do any good. But Cody always, gave me the goals and really believed in me, and so I just kept doing it, kept swimming workouts, multiple times a week, every week. And even on my birthday in June of '92, I always wanted to do this triathlon within a year of my accident, and so actually got a chance to go and compete in a triathlon. And I did the swimming portion, and that was just
with one arm.
With one arm.
In an open water swim.
Yeah, out in the lake, and so I just swam with my left arm and kicked my legs, and this right arm just kind of drug along, but was able to finish the triathlon, and on my 30th birthday, June 20th of '92, and so it felt really great to be able to do that. It's a real accomplishment. But continued to swim in June, July, and August, and about August or September, so about a little over a year after my accident, I started coming to Cody and saying, I'm getting some movement in this shoulder and this arm, and I told some doctors about it too, and they were still a little skeptical that it was really healing. But Cody started measuring me, and a lot of his different measurements, and he said, I think you're right. I think you're getting some movement back in there. That nerve must be firing again a little bit, and it was gradual at first, but by about September, about 13, 14 months after my accident, I started to get a little movement in that shoulder, and then Cody and I did intensive physical therapy over the next couple of years, and now, well, it was even a couple of years, 2 years after the accident, I was able to do a full triathlon and use both arms, and the right arm was weaker, but it's continued to get stronger, and now I can, throw balls. And one of the things I'm most excited about was, when I had the accident, I was single, but 3 years after the accident, I met my wife Sandy. We got married, and just a little over a year after that, we had our son Casey. And a goal I always had was to be able to teach him how to swim, and to be able to throw a ball with him, throw a football, throw a baseball. And I'm right-handed, and it was pretty special when I was able to, when he got old enough, 2, 3, 4 years old, to start to throw balls, and to be able to throw a ball with that right arm that so many doctors didn't know that if it would ever work. But Cody always believed in me, and then real surprised, but about 9 years after the accident, I got a letter in the mail from the U.S. Olympic Committee, and found out that they wanted me to run with the U.S. Olympic torch and the U.S. Olympic torch relay. And a bunch of my friends, including Cody, had nominated me without telling me. And I can't even tell you how exciting that was. And so the day that we got to go run the Olympic torch, they spent a day going around and talking about all the people that have been nominated and that were going to be running the torch with you. And it was just really humbling to see the group and all the things that these people had overcome to be able to be there that day, and to be a part of that was really a day I'll never forget. But the thing I did was, the day of the Olympic torch, they tell you how to do it. You have a certain outfit you have to wear. It's all detailed out. And I remember that that day, when the torch came around, my arm was still getting stronger and stronger, but I decided no matter what it took, I was going to carry that Olympic torch, and I was going to carry it in my right hand, my right arm, the one that most people didn't believe I'd be able to use again, except for Cody. And then I'll just tell you, when they handed off that Olympic torch to me, and I was able to run it to the next stop, to sit there and run on the two legs that were so badly shattered, and the left leg that some thought I might not be able to keep, and to hold the U.S. Olympic torch and represent the U.S. Olympic team carrying the torch in my right arm, the same right arm that some thought I would never use again. That's a day I'll absolutely never forget, and I'm very thankful to Cody and to his creativity and his perseverance and his believing in me all through the rehabilitation process. Because Cody and I did rehab together, inpatient rehab together for a couple of months, and we did outpatient rehab for a couple of years together. And I'm so thankful, so thankful.
Yeah, and the Olympic story gives me goosebumps. So it was a pretty special day, pretty cool day. So we're gonna close it there. We've got part 3. So we're gonna wrap it up with part 3. So if you've enjoyed this, please tune in and check out part 3 of the video. And hope you've enjoyed the story so far. And then please feel free to watch the next one.